Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to my first audio session of Lo and Behold Your Crypto. My name is Brendan Murphy, and I will be the host of this show. Before I really go into the concepts that I want to go into, I just want to elaborate that this project, this podcast, is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. But with school finishing up and finals, I wasn't really able to put in the time. But now I'm able to do so. So I'm very, very happy. Some of these early episodes might be a little rough around the edges. I do have a background in media and technology, so I do know how to keep these things going. But in terms of me throwing this podcast in particular together, I just turned in a final about an hour ago, and I just said, I'm going for it. I'm going to record this podcast because it's something I've been wanting to do. And that leads me into my background, which, as I said, I have media, film, podcast, radio. I have that in my background, as well as a technology degree. I just finished my undergraduate for ITI at Rutgers, great school, and I also am going to for my master's of information at Rutgers as well, which is like a hybrid technology and library science course. So you're dealing with technology along with socioeconomic issues with technology and organizing information. So that gives me experience with databases, which helps me understand blockchain. I understand the community in which technology resides, as well as some of the sociology and the impacts of technology on smaller economies. And that leads me to the start of the show, right? So what you're here for most likely is about cryptocurrency, right? I am not an expert. I am not going to be giving or advising much advice in terms of investments, but I will be giving you some of the platforms, the wallets, some extra information that might help you so that if you want to research and go about it yourselves, you can. But primarily in this first episode, what I wanted to do is clear up some of the underlying issues that I've had with some people that argue against cryptocurrency, right? So once again, just like I said at the beginning, if I chop up, if I, make any loose statements, I apologize. This is the first time I've been recording this podcast, so here it goes. One of the core concepts I wanted to bring up was to think about cryptocurrency just like you think about a chip at a casino. So when I go to a table like blackjack or I go to a cashier, what I do is I trade the US dollar for a chip. Now, they are offering that chip for the same price of the US dollar, right? So a lot of people bring up what is a Bitcoin valued, and that's not my point of what I'm trying to argue right now. What I'm trying to get at is that I swap a US dollar for this chip. Now, my main point is that with this chip, in the casino, it has a lot of context. I can go to the waitress and I can order a drink and I can tip her. I can pay her for a drink if that's required. I can go to blackjack and I can bet that chip. I can give the chip away, right? Now, let's say I am in Vegas and I come back home to New Jersey and I have $5,000 worth of chips that I can only use at the Vegas casino that I was at. What value do these chips have? Because in context, yes, I can go back to Vegas and I can exchange these chips, which I may very well do. But at the same time, at that point, those chips are valueless because until I actually go there and exchange those chips, they are literally just chips in my pocket. I could hang them up on the wall if I want. And even more so, let's say I gave the chips to somebody with no context, right? I just gave them those poker chips or blackjack chips, just, Vegas chips. They take it and they're holding it and they're going, "What is this?" Right? I can tell they're casino chips. But what do I do with these? So right there, you've already lessened the value of those chips because until they figure out where to go, those are literally just chips, right? So the meaning of this, to circle back, is that context is very big with these digital currencies. Because when I'm holding a currency in the digital nature, in reality, it's because it's running some kind of network, right? It's being run through a network. In terms of the casino chip, it's running through that casino. I can't go to McDonald's and buy a Big Mac with those chips, but I can go back to that casino and exchange it for funds, and then go to McDonald's and change and buy a Big Mac, right? So, thinking about a blockchain like a casino is how I've come to kind of think about it. And in terms of the evolution of blockchains, you're seeing some companies and blockchains like District Ox, which is trying to actually build a network around separate entities within the blockchain community. So you might have a company like Uber. So it's a bunch of taxi drivers that want an easier way to connect their Bitcoin or their certain kind of coin, right? So companies like this are going to be the evolution. A lot of them are run on Ethereum, which make it easier because then multiple entities can be within one network, yet at the same time, they can be in separate networks, but be using the same decentralized coin that make it much faster and less regulations than the US dollar. And that brings me to the socioeconomic values of digital currencies and blockchains in particular, right? So in my studies, I've talked a lot about the sharing economy and the gig economy. If you don't know what they are, quite simply, they're micro or macro economies within the, essentially every country will have short versions of these. England went through a sharing economy portion before the Brexit. It didn't last long, right? So that was one of my projects that I had that I was talking about how Britain tried, didn't make it far, but U.S. is a way different culture. And with the gig economy, you're seeing how the sharing and gigs kind of coincide with each other, right? The gig economy takes up about 35% of the American workforce. So this is all your laborers, like your drivers on Uber, your guys on Etsy making design things, obviously women too. And these networks really, to me, prove what a blockchain is going to solve, right? Because you've got a lot of people that are doing independent contracting work that can be using a decentralized coin rather than the American dollar because it's just a hassle, right? Nobody wants to take a check for doing work anymore and go to the bank and have to do that, right? Why can't you just go online and send me that payment, right? And another fact is look at Venmo. Venmo is huge right now. The other one, PayPal has started to do where you can cross pay each other, right? Venmo really revolutionized what it means to peer-to-peer payments. And in my opinion, that's almost one of the things that people should start to pick up on and see that, yes, Venmo worked. And you know how they changed the game? From what I know, every bank that my friends have accounts with can exchange peer-to-peer. 4 years ago, you couldn't do that, right? The banks didn't want you to be able to just trade person to person for free. They didn't want that. But guess what? Venmo came along and did it. And you know what all of the banks have now? Peer-to-peer payments, right? And I'll come back to it later, but you've got to see that about blockchain, because if you think that the banks are just going to go, Bitcoin, it's sketchy, it's volatile, and they're going to look at blockchain in the terms of the way that they view Bitcoin, I mean, I don't know. I don't see that, because they're going to start using this blockchain technology, right? Which I only think makes digital currencies even stronger. But I'll come back to that at the end. So, went over the casino essentially as the network you can think about. the socioeconomics or the sharing gig economy of the reason why people would want digital currencies and the people that would use it. People started off with Bitcoin and the Silk Road, those drug sites and everything. And I can understand that. People wanted to do illegal things. But realistically now, you're starting to see the evolution of how people can actually use these for actual businesses. And along with the casino coin I would bring up, right? I can own a store and I can make gift cards for my customers, right? And again, I know people want to attach, well, it's backed by the US dollar, but that's not the point here. The fact is that I'm making a separate currency that you can use in my store. And an example of how that loosens up regulations is, let's say, and somebody listening to this can go find this out for me if I'm not right, but from what I understand, I can do a lot more in my store in terms of selling things or doing raffles or, like mini gambling, styled things if I just had some kind of currency within my store. So if I had everybody buying gift cards, and with those gift card payments, they all chipped in for some kind of raffle or, like an NFL pool, right? For a Survivor pool. If it's my own currency, it's the gift cards, I'm pretty sure that they are not allowed to come down on me. Now, if they're using US dollars to do that, then technically you're using US dollars to gamble, illegally, which you can't do. But once I offer my own form of payment, so you transfer your US dollars for my gift cards, which is my currency, then technically, yes, you can do whatever, because now it's within my establishment to be able to, transfer these funds in whichever way I please. Obviously, there's probably some limits of some sort, but I'd be interested if anybody heard that and it ticked off and they did research and either did or didn't find that out. But I remember a few years ago I had done the research on that, and that was the case. And that leads me to regulation. This has been the biggest topic, right? And I kind of touched up on it already. And I am a firm believer that even if things are, quote unquote, regulated, it is not going to affect digital currencies in a negative way. First off, this is going too deep, too quick for the government to keep up right now. Yes, maybe 5 to 10, 15 years, they can actually build an infrastructure that can track all digital currency transactions. But in my opinion, it's almost a joke to think that the government right now can build some kind of infrastructure and track digital currencies. It's known that the reason we like these currencies is because they're decentralized. They're hard to track. Yes, you can track them, but who are you going to pay to track all of these different currencies? There's probably like 1,000 different currencies right now. There's 1,000 plus currencies. How are you going to track every single one? Right? I'm not for doing things that are illegal where if they say, it's illegal to do this. But guess what? There's always ways to bypass it where it's technically legal and I could go to a different country, open up a different account, and, something like that. So I don't see it as a benefit to the U.S. government to really attack digital currencies in the way that would force a drop, right? Also, with regulation, in terms of how they're going to regulate it, I've heard this thing about if it's going to be securities or if it's property. But one thing I want everybody to realize in terms of being able to swap coins, right? They're calling it atomic swaps. So the point of decentralized currencies was that I can connect with somebody from Nigeria, Switzerland, Australia, with a quick, easy transaction that didn't have to deal with the U.S. dollar, right? And what this does, if you think about it, is when you take out money from the stock market, that's when you have to tell the IRS how much you made, right? Capital gains or capital losses. Until then, you shouldn't have to tell the IRS how much money you put into in terms of getting your taxes, in terms of affecting your taxes. You shouldn't have to tell them, right? So if I have a coin like Bitcoin, right, and I want to use this Bitcoin in something, if there's a network like I've been talking about, like let's say the casino, I can transfer this Bitcoin into the casino's denomination of money or whatever their money that they are using. If I can swap, I haven't sold anything, right? So if I haven't sold it, then who's to say the IRS can come after me? Because all I did was swap, right? There was no selling. So I'd be interested to see where this kind of thinking goes, because in my opinion, the reason that it's so powerful, these currencies, is that I can swap to something that is highly untraceable, right? They're called private coins. You can look those up. They are the coins that are really, really against government oversight, and these are the ones that, if you were going to pay the government to try to trace these things, I mean, you're just wasting money, right? Because these are the ones that people are using to really hide and make their changes private. Also, the use of VPNs, right? If you're going to be tracking me, I'm just going to use a VPN that'll cover up where I am, right? That's just going to hide things. Sure, with net neutrality, maybe you can somehow do something where you can track my internet service provider. They can, get a little bit more gritty now that they have control of the ISPs. But realistically, there's always the changes. And right now, the cryptocurrencies are on the offense, right? I've not seen any defense. I've seen that the government, the FBI, took over those Bitcoins. It was like 144,000 Bitcoins. Right now, I think they said they sold it like maybe a month ago. That's literally like in the billions, right? So they just made billions of Bitcoins or dollars on that seizure. So why would they want it to go down? Because realistically, if they're going to keep seizing assets like that, they're going to want to get their money's worth, right? They don't want it to be down. And also, I am a believer that the Trumps, the Gates family, like, they are all invested in this. If you don't think that they have some kind of stake in digital currencies, Donald Trump Jr. wasn't investing in this from early on. Maybe he wasn't, but I just find that a little hard to believe, knowing what I know about these currencies and how many people got in on it, and all they had to do was throw $1,000 on it when it was, in the early stages, $1, something like that, and they are literally just rolling on it. And if you believe that the rich have it right now, in terms of the presidency with Donald Trump, I doubt he's going to be chasing any of these people because they're probably friends with him. Probably people, a lot of his friends and family probably own these kind of currencies. So I don't find it realistic that the government is going to come chasing after us. And that leads me to my last main point, right? This is in my opinion, my strongest argument that I have against regulation. And that is, even if regulation happened, who is to say that it is going to make anything crash, right? Just like I brought up Venmo, changing the game with peer-to-peer payment, the banks, all they did was follow suit. And now the banks are doing it, right? And that's what you're seeing with the banks. The banks are calling in these blockchain specialists, these engineers, to ask them what they're doing. And a lot of them are, asking, I heard this on a podcast, they're asking these people, are we going to get knocked out of business? Is this good or bad for us, these blockchains? And they say it's both, right? If you get with the times and you build your infrastructure to be able to keep up with these blockchain advancements, you're going to be on the good side of the curve. Now, if you're falling behind and you're believing that none of this is going anywhere, you're probably going to be falling behind because people like me that are into technology and follow this stuff kind of know that this is the way to go, right? That this is the way it's going. And with that being said, I want to bring up the I don't know how I'd phrase this, but let's say the marijuana culture, right? This is the best comparison I personally can make right now because I think, the marijuana community is huge. Everybody's got a friend that smokes it, right? And marijuana started off black market, right? There was no regulations. There was no taxes. 10, 15 years ago, maybe they had a little bit of like medical stuff, but like in terms of, taxes, everything like that, everything was black market, right? And tell me, how big was that market worldwide? Marijuana. I'll let you think about that. No regulations, nothing like that. How big of a market do you think that was bringing in? I'll give you like 10 seconds. And I'll cut you off short, right? It was pretty damn big. And what I would say is, okay, now it's regulated. Now they're offering it, and you can buy it in stores and you pay taxes, okay? Now, I'll give you another 10 seconds. Do you think that this has made marijuana any less valuable, or has the marijuana market crashed? Take a quick second. Your answer should be no, right? All it's done is evolutionized marijuana, right? Now you see people baking cookies, making chocolate, and doing these oil things, stuff like that. It's only progressed the use of marijuana. So to say that regulating something is going to make it crash almost just makes me laugh in my socks, right? Because you're seeing that marijuana, and it is right now, it's legal and it's also illegal, right? So we've even got the ends of both worlds just to say, how does something like this work? Because you've got marijuana in some states, federal, it's legal, but then in some states it is illegal, right? So technically the FBI can come in and just take your stuff, yada, yada, yada. But you're also seeing that in some places you can just smoke it freely, right? Out on the street and stuff like that. Or it's decriminalized or legalized, all those different terms that you've got around. So take that as a view of how digital currencies can work, right? Yeah, you might make them illegal in a few states or something like that. But guess what? This is a big world, right? If India's in on it, if Asia is in on, or China, sorry, Russia, they're all in on it, then, it's not going anywhere. And if you look at the political climate with Russia and North Korea and stuff like that, you see all these hackings. And this is the one thing that sketched me out about Bitcoin at first, was that I knew stuff like this was going on, right? Malware. If you look at ZombieNet, all of this ransomware, a lot of these, hackers, what they do is they take over your computer. And while they're asking for ransoms, or when it's down, what they're doing is they're running your computer and they are mining with those computers. So imagine you have 100,000 computers that just go kaput because of ZombieNet, right? They take over your computer. They're even asking you for money, so more of a ransomware. Maybe some people are actually getting money, maybe they're not. But all of those computers are being mined through a cloud-like network, right? So that process has been earning a lot of these countries money. So they're probably rolling in it, right? They do not want cryptocurrencies to fail. If this fails for them, then they just wasted a lot of time, right? There's definitely a lot of people that have been working on these too. If you follow anything cybersecurity wise, you'll know that there's been a lot of stuff going on, and people kept saying who, where, when, and why. Well, guess what? Why was for digital currencies. That's why, because now they've earned so much that, they're blowing past some people in terms of how much digital currencies that they've had. They have these data warehouses that are huge. You can just do a little bit of research on that. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the first episode for me. I didn't keep track of how long this one was, so I'll kind of do some listens through, see how it goes, and see what I can fix for next time. But if anybody has questions, feel free to email me at